You walk through the front door and something in you just gives. Not dramatically. No collapse, no breakdown, just that quiet deflation. Like a breath you've been holding since 7 this morning, finally releasing all at once. You put your bag down. Maybe you sit on the couch. Maybe you just stand there for a moment in the hallway, not quite ready to be anywhere yet. And the strange part is that you're not sure what happened to you today. Nothing went wrong. No crisis, no confrontation, no moment you could point to and say, that's what did it. You just did your job. You showed up. You got through it. You came home. And somehow you feel like something essential was quietly taken from you over the course of 8 hours, and you don't know exactly when or how. So you sit there, too tired to cook, too wired to sleep, scrolling through something you're not actually watching, and some version of the same question surfaces again. Why am I this tired? If that question has followed you home more times than you can count, this is for you. Not to hand you a list of fixes, not to explain what you're doing wrong, just to name what's actually happening. Because what's happening has a shape, and once you can see the shape of it, the weight of it changes. You are not weak. You are not failing at something everyone else has figured out. You are responding to something real. The story the world tells about work exhaustion goes like this. You're tired because you worked hard, and the solution is rest. And if you're still tired after resting, then you need to manage your time better, or sleep more consistently, or cut back on caffeine, or build a better morning routine. That story isn't wrong exactly, but it's missing something enormous, because the tiredness most people bring home from work isn't primarily physical. The body sat in a chair all day. The body is technically fine. What got spent, what got quietly, steadily depleted over the course of the day, was something else entirely. Something the culture doesn't have great language for because it doesn't show up on any productivity metric or performance review. The energy of being a person at work, not the energy of completing tasks. The other energy. The energy of reading a room before you've said a word. Of sensing that a meeting has an undercurrent nobody is naming. Of choosing, dozens of times a day, how to present yourself. How warm to be, how direct to be, how much of what you actually think is appropriate to say out loud in this particular context with these particular people. That calibration never stops. From the moment you walk in until the moment you leave, some part of you is doing it, quietly, automatically, at a cost that doesn't announce itself until you get home and suddenly have nothing left. Let's slow down and stay with the actual experience of a workday. Not the content of it, but the texture. You arrive. Before you've opened a single document, you've already assessed the energy in the room, whether the atmosphere feels tense or easy, whether the people around you seem okay or off. You didn't decide to do that. It just happened, the way breathing happens. Then the day begins in earnest, and underneath everything visible, the emails, the meetings, the work itself, there is a constant, low-level process running. You hear a tone in someone's voice and you file it somewhere. You notice a silence that goes on a beat too long and you register what that might mean. You feel the mood shift after a comment lands wrong, and you make a small internal adjustment without anyone asking you to. By 10 in the morning, you have already done an enormous amount of work that will never appear on any record of what you accomplished today. And then there are the meetings, not the content of the meetings, the performance of them. The particular kind of attention required to be visibly engaged for an hour, while also actually processing information, while also tracking the interpersonal dynamics, while also managing how you're coming across, while also holding whatever you were thinking about before the meeting started in some temporary mental waiting room until you can get back to it. That is not one thing happening. That is 4 or 5 things happening simultaneously, and it runs on a kind of energy that doesn't replenish itself during a 10-minute break between calls. By early afternoon, something starts to thin. Focus becomes effortful in a way it wasn't this morning. Small decisions that would have taken seconds now take longer. The email that should have been simple to write gets reread and revised in a way that feels faintly disproportionate to its importance. There's a flatness creeping in at the edges. Not depression, not sadness, just a kind of gray. The signal's starting to drop. And still the day continues. Still the performance is required. Still the calibration runs. You get through it because you always get through it. You are good at this. But getting through it and not being depleted by it are 2 entirely different things. Here is something worth sitting with. The modern workplace was not designed around the way human attention actually works. It was designed around the idea that attention is a steady, reliable resource. Something you bring to work in the morning, and that diminishes gradually and predictably over 8 hours like a candle burning down. But attention doesn't work like that. Especially not for people who process their environments deeply. Every interruption, every notification, every impromptu question, every context switch from one task to a completely different one doesn't just pause what you were doing. It costs something on the way out and something again on the way back in. The mind doesn't simply resume where it left off. It has to rebuild the mental state it was in, reconstruct the thread it was holding, re-enter the depth of focus it had reached. And that reconstruction takes time and energy that never gets factored into anyone's estimate of how demanding the day actually was. Most people in modern office environments never reach deep focus at all. They spend the entire day in a state of constant re-entry, never quite arriving at the quality of attention the work deserves, never quite finishing the mental process they started before the next interruption arrives. That is an exhausting way to spend 8 hours, not because the work is too hard, because the conditions make genuine presence nearly impossible in the mind that keeps trying to get there anyway, that keeps rebuilding, re-entering, refocusing, burns through something that rest alone doesn't fully restore. And then there is the layer that almost never gets named. The performance of being fine. Work asks something of most people that has nothing to do with the job description. It asks them to maintain a version of themselves. Professional, composed, appropriately warm, not too much, not too little, for the entire duration of the day, regardless of what's happening internally. Regardless of whether they slept, regardless of the thing sitting at the back of their mind that has nothing to do with work but that doesn't politely disappear just because they clocked in. Holding that performance together is work. Real, effortful, energy-consuming work. The kind that leaves a specific residue, a particular quality of tired that isn't physical, that sleep doesn't always touch, that people often describe as feeling hollow or flat, or like they used up the part of themselves they actually like. Because what gets spent in that performance isn't the mechanical part of you. What gets spent is the relational part, the part that cares how things land, that notices how people are feeling, that wants to be present and genuine, even inside a context that doesn't always make that easy. The people who feel this most acutely tend to be the ones bringing the most of themselves to work in the first place. The ones who aren't just going through motions. The ones for whom the gap between the performed version and the actual version is wide enough to be genuinely costly to maintain across an entire day. That gap is exhausting in a way that no productivity hack addresses. So you come home, and the version of you that walks through that door isn't the depleted version of a person who failed today. It's the honest version of a person who was fully, quietly, constantly present through everything the day asked of them. The tiredness you're carrying isn't a sign that something went wrong. It's the exact shape of everything you gave. When that shift happens, when the exhaustion stops reading as personal failure and starts reading as accurate information about what the day cost. something loosens. Not because the tiredness disappears, because the story around it changes, and the story carries its own weight, separate from the tiredness itself. You stop asking what's wrong with you and start asking what you actually need. Those are very different questions. One spirals inward, the other moves forward. What you need probably isn't complicated. Stillness that isn't also stimulation. Quiet that doesn't ask you to perform anything. Time where the calibration can genuinely stop. Where you're not reading anyone, managing anything, holding any version of yourself together for any audience. The walk with no destination, the meal that doesn't require a decision about where to order from, the hour with something that restores rather than demands. Not because you've earned a reward, but because restoration is a basic requirement for a mind that operates at the depth yours does. Some nervous systems skim the surface of a day and arrive home largely intact. Others absorb everything: the tone, the tension, the unspoken, the undercurrent, and arrive home having processed far more than anyone around them realizes. Neither one is better, but they have genuinely different requirements. And spending years treating a deep processing nervous system like a skimming one creates a chronic deficit that compounds quietly until it becomes very loud. You're allowed to have the requirements you actually have. There is one more thing. The guilt that often sits alongside this kind of tiredness. The "you should be fine by now," the "everyone else seems to manage," the "I only sat at a desk all day." That guilt is not neutral. It doesn't just observe the exhaustion. It adds to it. It becomes another thing to carry on top of everything already being carried. And it's based on a comparison that was never fair to begin with. You are not everyone else. Your experience of the day is not the same as the person next to you who seems unbothered. The cost of what the day asked of you is real, regardless of whether it matches anyone's visible expectations of what should be tiring. Letting go of the comparison, slowly, imperfectly, without forcing it, is part of what eventually makes the evenings feel like they belong to you again. Not because you become less sensitive, not because the days become less demanding, because you stop spending the hours after work also arguing with yourself about whether you're allowed to be tired. You are allowed to be tired. You're allowed to come home and need the kind of quiet that other people don't seem to need as urgently. You're allowed to be a person who gives a great deal to their days and needs a great deal back from their evenings. That isn't a flaw in your design. That is your design. And your design absorbs what others walk past without noticing. So not lazy, present for everything. Your design stays with things, turns them over, feels the full weight of them. So not weak, just built to carry more than most. Your design processes at a depth that costs something real. So not behind, running a completely different kind of race. Before you close this, I want to ask you something I genuinely want to know. What is the first thing you do when you get home after a day that took more than it should have? Not what you think you should do, what you actually do. Leave it in the comments. You might name something that someone else has never been able to say out loud.